Good morning, everyone. It's Alex, and I am bringing on David to debunk health myths, debunk nutrition myths. Just have to look for, oh, here we go. Welcome, everyone. We are going to be speaking with, oh, here's David already. Yay. Hi, David.
Hello. This time I did it. Wow. Made the
You
connection.
did.
Yes.
So
Good
welcome,
evening or
David.
good morning. Hi.
Yeah, good evening to you. Good evening to all of you who are on the side of America, and I'm here, Bali, Australia side. So David and I are going to be starting a little series, and we do these lives as we can because we both have busy schedules. And we are going to be talking about debunking a lot of nutritional and health myths, and in particular, my passion at the moment, and for a while, and the meeting of David with David has just been such a synchronistic time for me. I'm passionate about debunking the whole polarization between veganism and fruitarian and all of that. That's the way to go, and that's going to save us all, versus keto is the way to go and paleo is the way to go. And if you're not doing that, you are doing big damage to your body. There's this polarization going on. And David, you bring so much wisdom, and not just wisdom, but embodied experience and many years of clinical experience. So what do you have to say to that, David?
Well, thank you. I think it's an important subject. Let me just ask, can you hear me well? Because I'm using a different audio piece.
Can hear you.
Okay, thank you. As you and I have discussed before, I think it's very important that we are able to differentiate between what is therapeutic, what is therapy, what is a transitional period, what is temporary, versus, or should be aligned with, what we consider a lifestyle, regularity, and that which is permanent. And we should not treat that which is permanent as temporary, nor should we treat what is temporary as permanent. So there are many therapeutic agents, there are many different protocols, there are many different diets, no doubt. And some of these diets are transitional programs. They meet you where you are at the moment, given your condition.
Uh-huh.
Your condition of where you've come to in your life, your condition as somewhat set by your genetics, how your genes respond, your condition somewhat based in your constitutional overall life. Constitution is a sum of all things. So it's your diet during your life, your exposure to the environment, whether or not one has adapted successfully to stress or not, and how your genes respond to all of the above. That's your constitutional makeup. So when we discuss diet, when we discuss specifics, whatever the diet is, we need to know, is it for the moment? Is it for the month? Is it for the 6 months? Is it for 3 years? Or are we treating what should be temporary to bring us to the next stage or phase? Are we treating it as lifelong? That's where the confusion enters in. What is temporary? What is supposed to be our goal that we want to reach?
Right. And that goal, as you said, depends on where you are at in the moment and how everything affects you, because the reality is, and I feel stress is such a vastly misunderstood point, because I used to think I'm not stressed, for
Yeah.
years.
Yeah.
And then I realized, wow, I have so much stress, an onslaught of stress on my nervous system, which really came from, for me personally, and I know for many it's the same, from trauma.
Correct.
And
Yes.
trauma that was never dealt with, and trauma that I had somewhat learned to mask, but at a great cost. So
Hmm.
there was
Hmm.
this suppressed, my body was in a complete state of stress, and to a degree it still is, and I'm still undoing that which I just didn't know and wasn't able to address for so many years because I was still in the environment of stress and all of that. And I feel a lot of us were not aware to the degree to which we are stressed, to which our nervous system is under stress, and the connection of trauma, unresolved trauma, which oftentimes is not even just our own, but it's generational.
Yes, very well put. Um, we have a general idea of what stress is. When I say we walk through life, we encounter circumstances, we experience upsets, right? We have our disappointments, we have our heartbreaks. Um, we thought we knew who we were, and then we discovered that, gee, maybe I don't know who I am. Uh, so we have all kinds of variables. So we also have another type of stress too, or shall we say, the body experiences another type of stress, and that is the environment. So you
Mm-hmm.
walk through life from being a toddler on up until you're a full grown adult. It's hard to really know what we've been exposed to and not exposed to. It's hard to know what pesticides, what herbicides, what petrochemicals we have been exposed to or not. We try to do our best to read labels as if they were disclosing, which mostly they are not. We breathe the air. We really are not sure the thousands of chemical agents we are exposed to. We experience temperature changes. Sometimes we're too hot, sometimes we're too cold. All of this calls upon the body to respond. This
Mm-hmm.
is defined by Hans Selye, the great stress expert, as the immediate response alarm reaction. The body perks up, says, I'm ready. Let me secrete hormones to meet the demand of adaptability. The body says, I need to adjust to the climate change. I need to respond to the toxins. I need to respond to, the body says, oh, so you're not feeling well. Oh, so you're feeling depressed. Oh, so you're feeling anxiety. Oh, so you feel like you're worth next to nothing today. The body will respond to that in a neurohormonal way. So
Mm-hmm.
the theme here is that in alarm reaction, it means the body is responding, reacting to secrete the necessary hormones or biological, physiological changes to meet the demand. Now, the issue is this. We should, in meeting the demand, come into a state of balance, a state of resistance, which is the second stage, which means we are now simmering down. We met the challenge and we are going to regain homeostasis, balance. But if the stressors are constant, 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 the body can lose its adaptability. In other words, our elasticity becomes brittle and we no longer can adjust. This is where the body becomes exhausted, stage of exhaustion. So it is paramount, as you were saying, that we increase our ability to adapt both on a psychological, spiritual, emotional level by having the right perspective of what we are experiencing, how we interpret it is a variable which is going to decide how our body responds. And then we need to have a healthy body so that the body does not go into that stage of exhaustion.
So can you talk about, the polarization between the raw vegan movement and the paleo keto movement, which is really, one is constantly pulled in either direction, and both camps claim that they have the answer, and the opposite camp
Yeah,
is the danger
yeah,
zone.
yeah, I know. I think perhaps part of the problem is the camps. Why do we have separate camps? You know, already, just this whole thing has become such a reality of separation, and it's become divisive, and it's confused people. So again, isn't it always the question of understanding why we are doing something at a particular moment in our life? Okay, so if you have a person that's on a keto diet, as you and I have discussed, maybe they need to drop 50, 60 pounds because their situation is reaching a critical point. For them at that particular point in their life, maybe that's necessary. Maybe it's the fast pace, the fast track into reducing a cardiac event. Like it would not be a good day for sure. So there's no doubt that when you go into a high protein diet, a low carb diet, your body is going to catabolize, means break down fatty tissue as a source of fuel. This also is somewhat can be referred to as a near, or it is a negative nitrogen balance. So sure, that's going to help, right? That's going to be able to cause people to lose weight. And then on the other hand, we have raw foodists, vegans, absolutely no animal food whatsoever. The only way to go here is that you give up all animal products like that, and you go on raw juices, 40, 50, 60 days, or you go on a raw diet. Well, it's going to help. You're alkalizing the body. You're going to detox. You're going to discharge. You're going to go into the catabolic negative nitrogen state. You're going to cleanse. Absolutely. So what's the point of either one? The point is that they both work. However, in the keto diet, on a long-term basis, what we have here are latter side effects of increased potential for atherosclerosis, different than arteriosclerosis. Arteriosclerosis is more of a hardening of plaque on the arteries. Atherosclerosis is like a slushing up. And that's because you're on a high animal saturated fat diet. It's just going to happen. They're going to undergo.
Sorry, I just want to interrupt you 1 second. Your light is almost like it's getting darker.
Yeah, I noticed that. I'm not sure why. Let me. Not sure what that is. Does that help any better?
That's a bit better. That's
A
a
bit
bit better,
better?
yeah.
Yes, I noticed the screen
Yeah,
just
that's
went just went dark, and I wasn't sure if it was your
yes,
end or my end,
much
but
better.
it helps a little bit?
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
Okay.
Okay.
So with the high protein saturated fat diet, you're going to have side effects. The colon is going to be affected. You're going to have bad bacteria being cultivated there. You're going to undergo some degree of mineral imbalance. This is just known. And it increases the risk of carcinogenic activity um, uh, within the colon itself, and a host of number of other issues which happens long term. But in the short term, of course, this is not going to happen because it's short term. These type of abnormalities take years to develop. So the question is, in the keto diet, is it a lifestyle or is it immediate emergency action? You know, it's immediate emergency action. Whereas on the vegan diet, that's more long term. Oh, but maybe not everybody can launch right into a raw food program. Maybe they're too toxic. Maybe they need work on their digestive system. Maybe they're too stressed out, as an example, and therefore limiting their food to such a narrow margin, if they don't have creativity, is going to stress them out, and then their cortisol goes high, their stress hormones go high, they develop anxiety, which I've seen, or with many vegans, as I've seen, and I say this respectfully, I've been vegan for 50 years. Okay, so I'm an advocate. However, not everybody has the same emotional constitution. Some will interpret a vegan diet as deprived. And in that state of where they may feel somewhat deprived, they may yo-yo. Oh, I'm doing fine for 3 months and they collapse. Oh, I did great for 6 weeks and then they binge. So the essence of the extremes is not balance. The understanding of balance is, where do I start? What's the next step? What's the next step? What's the next step? And how do I get there? This is the essence of integration, as we have discussed.
Yeah, so what we're saying, and what the protocols really reflect, is that what's first of all necessary is a transitional period, which will differ for everybody. And what you've expressed to me is that oftentimes the transitional period is just not long enough, and or when we go into deep cleansing, we may have periods where we are on juices or even on all fruit, but then we must find our way back to a more balanced lifestyle. And sometimes for a period, that may mean for some of us going back on some animal products until we can find our way back, or not even back, until we can create a new path of health that is plant-based. But you're saying it takes years depending on the individual, because I've met
That's right.
people, I mean,
That's right.
you dove into this lifestyle 50 years ago when you were, what did you say, 18? You started, so
Revealing my age, are you?
you were so young, and you did a lot of deep fasting, which water fasting, which changed your toxicity state very quickly at a very young age. Whereas a lot of us are diving or have gone towards this lifestyle at an older age. Therefore, we have a lot more toxicity and cellular degeneration to deal with. And therefore, it's not going to be a straight line, or like some people think from one day to the next, that's where I'm going. But it has to be a transitional period that respects our various breakdowns of tissue and cellular functions, and brings them
Absolutely.
up to a healthy function.
Absolutely. As we age, things change. Things do change. Our biology changes. So even if you're on the healthiest diet, even if you're on a detox, green chlorophyll-based diet, your body still will change because there's a regulator. That regulator is your DNA. Now, does that mean that you can't change proclivity? Does that mean that if you have a genetic basis where you're more prone to A, B, or C in terms of weaknesses, does it mean you can't change it? Yes, you can change, because we to some degree can change how our genes respond, and we can change what our state is through deep detox, through psychological, spiritual, emotional realigning. Yes, we can. But that does not mean that the aging process does not take place. It does. And we have to work within that framework. So if you are 75, don't expect to be 40. Okay, this is fantasy thinking. We must embrace where we are and cherish where we are and live to the fullest potential of whatever age bracket we are in. Now, that said, when we understand protocols and detox, we must understand that people are starting at different places. When you are 18 years of age, like in my case, that's different than liver function and the ability for the liver to degrade toxic chemicals than when you're 60. It just is different because the liver's been working more. It's been on Earth longer. It's put out more energy. Can you revitalize that energy? Of course. Will everything stay the same? No. It's one of the laws of nature, the law of entropy. Things do dissipate over time. We can infuse energy into entropy or decline and bring things back up, but only to a certain degree. Now, let nobody become disappointed because through detox and deep spiritual and emotional healing, you can have a vibrant, radiant, powerful, clear life. I am, you know, toward the end of my 6th decade, right? And I still practice martial arts. I can still be tremendously active and elastic, and do many, many things which people in their 40s gave up on. Okay. But that does not mean that I'm going to enter the Olympics, and try for the gold medal. It doesn't mean that. So we must understand that there's the reality of how we grow and develop. There's a reality of how our body changes. And then there's a reality of potentiating each section, each period of our growth and development, potentiating. So if you're 20, potentiated. If you're 35, potentiated. If you're 45, potentiated. If you're 70, potentiated. If you're 85, yes, go for it. Potentiate it within your constitutional reality of where you are at that moment. So for vegans to say no, 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 and for ketos to say no, 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 the question is explain yourself. What do you mean no? How do you know I should not do this if you don't even know me? If you don't know my constitution, you don't know my background, you don't know my childhood, you don't know my constitutional genetic makeup. In other words, you don't know. So a lot of people are giving answers without knowing. People give answers without listening to the questions. So I think for any health practitioner, at least in my view, the art of listening is very important. Listen carefully before you try to present solutions, to understand who it is emotionally and what body you're talking about. Understand the life of the person. Then meet them where they are and bring them further. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. There's a question here. Do you think blood type plays a part in diet?
Blood type? In all due respect to Dr. Diadamo, it's a variable, but it's overemphasized. So for instance, type O, I believe, is supposed to be meat eaters. I'm type O, and I haven't eaten meat in 50 years. And my blood chemistry is normal. My iron count, hemoglobin, hematocrit has always been fine. So I do not necessarily advocate that as a marker in terms of your diet. I know that there are a certain level of science behind it and discussion and dialogue, but I have not found it to be wholly accurate.
Yeah,
in my
I
in
would
my
agree.
experience.
I would agree with that. I think it's maybe a sign of where we come from potentially, like what is
Right.
our lineage, but that it's not necessarily where we need to be heading. And
Yes,
and
yes.
this
Well,
is
where we've come from is not exactly what we want to return to. So we need to move forward and have a plan and understand the steps of getting there, don't we?
right. And this is, what you and I have discussed so often, um, about where we come from is not ideal, because so often, we say, oh, but we used to be paleo, we used to be keto, we used to be, you know, like there's all these philosophies. But ultimately, we're saying, well, we haven't yet found the real formula, and certainly not the one formula for everyone to thrive. We're still figuring it out.
Well, let us put it a different way. People are different, and there isn't an exact one protocol for everyone. But here's what we do know. We all have to breathe. Breathe fresh air, breathe properly. Number two, the sun exists. We need warmth. We need the sun for photosynthesis, for our foods. We need the sun to activate our immunological system. We need it for conversion to vitamin D. We need the sun for life. Okay, so we know we need air. Got it. We need oxygen to oxygenate, to bind with our red blood cells, so our cells stay alive. Without oxygen, our cells will not function. That's just a fact of life. So we need quality sun, air, water. Absolutely. We definitely need water. You go for a certain amount of weeks without water and you will have undesirable effects. A couple of weeks, I'm saying. Water is what our body is by up to 73%. So what type of water are we taking in? So we have sunlight, air, water, and then the fourth element of the life force for our existence is foods. We have to have clean foods, whether you are a vegan, whether you are raw, 70% vegan, 80% vegan, everything should be pure and clean, without pesticides, toxicides, herbicides, petrochemical, emulsifiers, preservatives, and who knows what else that we can't pronounce is liable to be in there, times 2,000, chemicals. Our food chain is contaminated. So now we have these four things, right? We have sun, right? Air, water, food. That's the earth. The base of four is the earth. To that, we know that there is such a thing as a source of creation, source of life, source of love. We need to make that connection to the higher spiritual realm of divine love, which without we starve emotionally. Secondly, we must live that love. We must live that love. I'll say it again. Live that love. Care for other people. Reach out to other people. This strengthens our inner being. So those two. And then we have the third aspect of the inner world, and that is wisdom. We need to acquire wisdom, spiritual wisdom. So now we have 3 of the inner world, and we have 4 of the physical earth. 4 plus 3 gives us 7. That's right. And the 8th one is a new week, a new day. Yes, you put these 7 elements together. Now you have the life forces coming into you. They should be pure, and we can make a new beginning. These things we know are true. This we can say with a great degree of certainty. These 7 things are indisputable, beyond argument, relevant. Every human being, every existent sentient being needs these elements to live. Now we can discuss with these 7 elements how they apply to what degree of intensity, how much sun, how much water, what type of food, right? How do I cultivate love within my heart and discharge resentment? Now we're talking stages, systematics, protocols, but we have the framework of the 7 life forces. So why it's true what you say, yeah. So what is the ideal? Well, at least we can establish at this point in our sharing, there are these 7 things which are unconditional. You can't argue, do we need the sun or not? We do. Do we need to breathe? Yes. Do we need water on our planet and we have to drink? I think so. Do we need food? Yes. Do we need love? Yes. We can be sure of these things. Now we enter into the discussion of what's the quality, how much, and when, and the systematics.
So this is where, when I'm kind of putting myself in the shoes of the listeners, obviously. And I go, well, there's a lot of people out there that, are so focused just on the physical part of health and not the psycho-spiritual and psycho-emotional part. And yet, and this is also in my experience, that is one of the most important components because it is going to affect our physiology and biology.
Yeah, that's a deep truth.
But for
Absolutely.
most of us, I think most of us are so caught up just in the survival, in the
Right,
physical and
right.
material survival that,
Yeah,
the reality is that there isn't much space and capacity to even tend to these other aspects. Um, I would like to just, briefly go into, because what we're seeing is a lot of people, they start out, and I hear these stories all the time where they start out as raw vegans or vegans for 3 or even 10 years or even 15 years, and then they reach a point where they can no longer be vegans. They're not thriving, their hair is falling out, their teeth are loose, their skin is erupting, they're experiencing all sorts of health issues.
yeah. They start
And
smoking
then
cigars. Just kidding.
and then they go into a paleo or ketogenic diet, and now they are thriving more than ever, and therefore that becomes the holy grail.
Yes, where here the facts are true, but the conclusion is wrong. That's what it means. So you have the right facts. Okay, your hair is falling out, it got thinner, my teeth are not good, I've been vegan for 10 years, I've become anemic. So the facts are correct, but the conclusion that we say that it was because I was vegan, the conclusion is wrong. That's where
Mm-hmm.
facts lie. So what is the issue? The issue is not that you were vegan and suddenly you felt better by going back to meats and junk foods or whatever. The issue is that when you entered into being vegan, you did it incorrectly.
Mm.
Or as a vegan, you didn't understand your constitution and therefore your dietary overall arrangement did not meet your constitution. In other words, you launched into it. I'm off on my 80-day juice fast. I'm off on another long fast, and I'm doing raw foods for the next 6 months. Wonderful. But your body may not have been ready for that. Therefore, the
Mm-hmm.
body will become imbalanced while you are trying to balance it because you're not meeting it where it is and taking
Yeah,
it to the next step. Every step must have a foundation underneath it in order for the next step to remain stable. Does that make sense?
absolutely. And that these foundations are not just physical, but they are mental, emotional, spiritual as well.
Absolutely, because in the archetype or the prototype of human growth and development. So a child is born into the world, right? That child must be nourished. Its mother's milk, then it's begin to eat food. The body's going to grow and respond to the quality of that nutrition, right? That child is going to learn, touch this, don't touch that. The child is going to explore the physical world, right? But simultaneously to the physical development, there should be the emotional, psychological, spiritual. They must
Mm-hmm.
grow in parallel synergy with each other. As an adult, we are not to just focus on our body, neglect our emotions and psychology, or just to focus on everything will be spiritualized. I will transcend and move beyond my body, or that extreme. So what's important is that we understand that these two fit together. We must cultivate our emotional, spiritual life at the same time, in my view, at the same time as we are detoxing and regenerating. This is based upon one of the divine principles, one of the divine life principles, which is this: reciprocal relationship. Spirit, body, they should be in a circular, cooperative relationship, like inhale and exhale. It's reciprocal, like arteries and veins. Or the relationship between two people who care for each other. It's not a monologue, is it? It's a dialogue. It's supposed to be a dialogue. So we must approach, I think, and as you and I have shared in our conversations, we must approach life in an integrated way.
Yeah, and I think what's so often difficult, and I've had my share of journey and difficulties in this process. It's difficult to, like, we all want to be one thing, we want to be raw vegan, we want to be fruitarian, we want to be vegan, or we want to be something, like, we want to put ourselves into categories because it feels safe, instead of becoming everything and realizing that everything has its place in the evolutionary process that we are in, and that sometimes we will sway one way or the other. Like, sometimes we've said it's totally appropriate for a period of time to be only fruit, to be living fasted in nature, and to connect, and to just be in the process of releasing. But then there's a time where that's no longer going to be appropriate. It's going to be bringing us into a state of degeneration for various reasons, because we can't emotionally, spiritually hold it, because we can't physically hold it any longer. And then we need to shift into another phase. And even that phase will shift and change. And this is, these are the teachings that you are bringing out in such a powerful and wise and embodied way. And of course, these are all flowing into the protocols that I have created, and we are bringing out a pathway for people to heal, not just physically, but heal their lives, basically.
Yes, well, you've summarized it really beautifully. In other words, just to say the same thing in a different way, healing is not a straight line. We don't go from A to M. It's a zigzag path. We even walk that way. When we walk, the feet don't go exactly straight like this. There's a little bit of this business. Certainly, if you ice skate, you don't ice skate like this. You skate like that. You move side to side. Healing is very much that way. So we have to adapt. We reach a certain level. We need to understand it, stabilize, then we move on to the next level. If we skip steps, we're bound to have to come back and say, oops, I've got to work on this previous step. Any good builder knows that you have to have the correct foundation before building the house. The architecture has to be right. We know that we're going to put the foundation in, and then we're going to put the first floor, right? We don't build the second floor first without the first floor. That just wouldn't work. So we need to move in steps in this way, and it's going to be a zigzag path. With every peak, there's going to be a valley. When we enter into the valley, this is where we learn. This is where wisdom comes. We reach the peak, we go to the valley. We go to another peak, another valley. But here's the significant thing. We reach a peak, we go down, we learn, but each time the valley is less deep. You see? So life is progressing, but not in a straight linear line. It's going like this. You see? And we have to accept that because it's going to happen. If we interpret or in our idealistic self, which is good, but the ideal's got to be woven into reality of where we are. If we feel that we're going to just be healed because we do this or that by tomorrow morning, you're going to be disappointed. And Progressive disappointment can lead to depressive episodes. You're just saying, I'm not going to do it anymore. I can't. But you can. We just need to do it in steps. And as we move into each realm of healing, we need to have the emotional and psychological stability. Yes. Where food does not become a dopamine effect, where we're not eating through the eyes of our childhood, or we're not eating out half the refrigerator to assuage, to lessen our emotional pain or whatever upset us that day. So we head straight to the refrigerator and clean it on out, or there goes a half a bag of chips in 15 minutes or less, you know. We have to be able to work these things through without leaning on vices, because this weakens us. So we must learn when we're stressed, when we are challenged emotionally. So what do we really do? Now, look, no judgment. If you want to eat half a bag of chips, go ahead. Okay. Just know that the chips are not going to answer your emotional life. That's all. Your chips, your crackers,
Yeah.
the cupcakes, whatever, they're not going to love you. They might taste good for a moment, but they're not going to love you. So the quest, the odyssey, the journey is ultimately not to use food as a substitute for feeling that you value yourself, or to cover up pain from within, as to put it out of mind, but it's still there doing its work internally. We must be able to face ourselves, and as you and I have shared, to tell the truth to ourselves about ourselves, to let our inner world be revealed to our conscious mind. So we know, we accept, we embrace, we cuddle what we are, joyful or painful, laughter or tears. Whatever it is, embrace it, because that's what it is asking for, to be listened to and embraced. That is the beginning.
Yeah, and these are the deeper discussions, because we can cover up our pain and suppress our pain and suppress the truth about ourselves with fasting, with meditation, with a high fat diet, you know, and
Yeah, yeah.
sometimes we chop and change, you know. I mean, I know, and I've done it. I've fasted because the fasting gave me sort of a cover up, and it made me feel strong. It made me feel like I'm taking charge of my life. But I, you know, and I ignored what was actually going on. And sometimes it's harder to sit with and be with everything that is going on beneath the surface, and to really feel it all.
So right. I mean, we all understand the story of the Titanic. Lesson learned. There's a lot more than what you see. So we must be
Mm-hmm.
able to see, not outwardly, we must be able to see inwardly. When we have insight, then we can have proper outsight. But the insight comes first, which means to listen to the lessons of our life, to listen to what your soul is saying, to listen to what your heart is saying. Listen to the lessons life has already taught us. Back
Mm-hmm.
up. And from that perspective, then we can understand our own behavior, and we can begin to change things at that moment. It's what lies beneath in the unconscious self. It's a big reservoir. You know, it's like an archer. You know, if you're going to shoot the arrow, the dynamic
Yeah.
tension is when you pull back deep. That's where the force is. The force lies in our unconscious mind. That's collected all the memories and experiences of our entire life. Consciously, we forget a lot. We remember very little. But the unconscious self is the reservoir of holding it. And we need to release certain things that don't belong there and keep that which is good. But how do you do that? Well, first we need to know what's there. Then we can do the gardening, right?
Absolutely. And this is where a lot of the work of detoxification, and I think that's where a lot of confusion comes in, is because when we detox, when we regenerate, what we're doing a lot of times is we're bringing our weakness to the surface.
Yes.
Just as when we do trauma work, I mean, there were things that for years I thought, oh, I have dealt with that. It's gone. And then a new layer arises and it's like, oh my God, it's the
I
most
know.
humbling moment, because you realize that which I thought I had dealt with, it just wasn't the right time. And, and that's how life goes. Sometimes we need to park things, but that life is really here to constantly teach us, humble us, and ultimately really evolve us spiritually. And I love, maybe we'll close with, yesterday you said to me, we are here to I can't remember how exactly you said it, but basically how we're in a body to learn to evolve spiritually. But the way you said it
Yes.
was just so beautiful.
Oh, would you like me to repeat it?
I would.
Okay. So we're born into this world like going to an academy. Our earth
Yes.
walk life is a journey on earth, embodied with our spirit, to cultivate true heart, which leads to true love, with the body as the temple of that true love. And we learn as we go through life. We are embodied and fleshed because the earth and our five physical senses, they communicate incredible amounts of information to us, right? And as we practice growth and development spiritually and emotionally, we become something. We are becoming people of true heart. And then eventually we graduate. Graduation day. We lose our body and we are birthed into the spiritual world with our spirit self, divine and holy and sacred, as a resonating being of true heart and true love. Earth life is the walk of learning. It's our school of cultivating our character to be true people, to be divine, holy humans that live, love from true heart.
Yeah. And that's just the most beautiful way of putting it, that our body is the house of God.
Yes, truly it is.
And that
Yes,
it's not about perfection and curing this body into a state of perfection, but it's, can we soften
yeah,
to the totality that we are and find a way to live with it and to dance with it in harmony with everything,
yes,
right? Instead of
yes.
needing to hold on. And it's, oh, it took me so many years and I'm still chewing on that one.
Well,
It's a hard one.
everybody is. If I might just add to it, there was once a great wisdom teacher who lived a very long time ago, about 2,000 years ago, a man, a gentleman of deep wisdom. And he talked about perfecting yourself. And he used the word in a very ancient language, Aramaic. Goes back 7,000, 8,000 years ago, this language. The word he used for perfection is gamar. So it doesn't mean how we understand perfection as being flawless in every way, right? You're never going to make a mistake. That's not what
Mm-hmm.
it means. It means the word gamar, to be perfect, means you are completing your cycles of growth. That's the goal. Complete your cycles of growth. Your body, your emotions, your heart, your spirit, how you think, how you feel, how you act, and it's all housed in our body, which would be born of the earth.
Yeah, and to me, what that means is, in relation to the body, is that every single one of our diseases is there to pull us into the teaching, into the gold that wants to be revealed. And that when we just quickly fix everything, fix as in patching up, suppressing,
Yeah,
stimulating,
it's a good
we're
point. A
not
very good
working,
point. Yeah.
right? Then we're not working with things. It's a bit like, just as an analogy, if we are feeling jealous in relationships, and then we need to work with that jealousy, we need to go into it, we need to feel it, we need to let it rip us apart so that we can
Yeah,
see what's there, instead
that's
of
right.
going, well, I'm just the jealous type, and therefore I'm I'm not going to be in a relationship, or I'm going to do a relationship in a way that I don't have to feel the jealousy. It's like,
Yeah,
oh,
avoidance. Yeah, it's avoidance. Yeah, we have to turn and face ourselves no matter what is there, whether it's resentment, jealousy, insecurity, identity crisis, whatever it is, co-addictive relationships, codependence. We have to face it, because unless we face it, it will chase you. It will
yeah,
chase you. You have to turn toward it and speak to whatever it is. Enter into a dialogue with it. Avoidance just doesn't work. It catches up to any of us at some point in our life, doesn't it?
absolutely. So these are all the themes that we are going to be addressing and working with in our Roots and Wings program, which, yes, it's a program to regenerate your body on a physical level, but it's really about regenerating all of you, and evolving yourself to becoming your true self. And the information on that will be out soon. But in the meantime, we're speaking about all the various aspects that are going to be addressed in the program, and really, all the various confusions and polarizations that are happening and have been happening in the health and wellness industry. And that I do find, it's time to find a root system that we can grow
Right,
from,
right.
instead of, because we're constantly being torn in all kinds of direction. And it's not useful, because that is how we end up in illusion, in more and more illusion, and the day-to-day life becomes not satisfying because we're in illusion.
You're quite right.
So
A different way of putting it, beautifully spoken, Alexandra, is that the way that the health and healing world, what is becoming, is very unlike the body. So you have the liver, you have your adrenals, you have your kidneys and lungs. They all do something different, but they don't fight with each other. Your lungs don't enter into a conflictive dialogue with your liver. The pancreas doesn't argue with your adrenals. You know, they don't call each other names. You know, they must work properly together. You know why? Because the liver, the adrenals, the pancreas, your thyroid, parathyroid, they all have their purpose, but they are all connected to a central column called your central nervous system and your spirit mind and your biological brain. Everything connects to a central column, but they have their role to play. So whether a person is on this diet, that diet, or this diet at that point in their life, it has perhaps a role. The important thing is that whatever role it has, that it's connected to some A-frame, some centrality of understanding, so that there can be progressiveness. And I think really that's the point, how to progress. beautiful sharing with you. And
Yeah, thank you,
and
David.
I truly hope the listeners, I'm sure they are benefiting because life gives
Absolutely.
life, and these are words of life,
Yeah, keeping it real.
keeping it real.
Thank you everyone for joining us. We're going to be doing these regularly several times a week, and yeah, looking forward to those of you that are going to be joining our program where we are going to go deep into the inner work besides the superficial physical, which, yes, amazing, but then it's a lot deeper than that. Sending you all my love. Speak soon. Bye everyone. Thank you, David.
You're welcome.